Without education. I think months of that. What percentage that projects goes and the benchmarking is what the average so they will have that. If your capital project is blue, you have a project of 10 trillion, 8 trillion is on the current expenditure. It is not move the needle of the one large of the infrastructure. So we want to be able to and begin to see the what aspect making the industry
We shall go by indication of readiness. Any group that is ready first will take the microphone in the next 3 minutes. Are you done? Is this group, are you done? Are you done? Okay. Medical, are you done? Okay. Built environment, are you there? Okay. It is 12:30. The finance group can start. Who is going to make the presentation? You have not answered my question. Dr. Sani Yemi is presenting on behalf of the finance group. Medical. Amsel, who is presenting for you? Yes, I can see that the built environment are ready now. It is only medical we are waiting for. And you are a smaller group, it is easier to deal with smaller group than bigger group. So, Mr. Femi, you can, Yemi, you can take the microphone, please. After you, then built environment, after built environment, medical. Please, are we together? Is everybody on the same page now? We want to start the plenary. Are you set? You are ready? Okay, thank you very much. So after
All right, good afternoon, everybody. This presentation is a deliberation at the ongoing retreat by the financial sector group. But before I do the presentation, please permit me to give honor to whom honor is due. Our dear president of our great association.
You see, I'm really sorry we are going up and down and backward. There is a suggestion that instead of taking all the issues together by one group, that why don't we take one item and all the three present? Then we take another item and all the three present, so that we will have some cohesion. But it's going to create a confusion. If we try it, because there are some other issues that you have raised that other people have not raised. So how are we going to manage that one? So I want to believe that let us go by our original arrangement. Let one group do everything. If you come to present, if there is something that you disagree on the one of them, you raise it and then continue with your own. I think it is which one? First or second? Thank you. First, Abid.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Chairman. The host of this retreat, in person of President, Mr. Manasseh Rubino, then the second Deputy President, Professor Mainoma, all council members present, and all presidents of the various professional bodies present here. The financial sector group comprises of ANAN, ICANN, CIS, CITN, CIBN, CIPSN, and CIIN. And the team lead is no other person than Professor Deji Olarewaju of CIBN, who is the first vice president of CIBN. The secretary is Mr. Larry Nwanoke of CITN, and the presenter is my humble Dr. Yemi Sani. The first question says, of all the professions in your sector exhibited the characteristics of the profession in her existence. This issue was deliberated on extensively by members of this team, and the contribution of everybody has brought to bear the position that has been taken by this sector. In being able to answer this question, what are the things that we looked at in terms of the characteristics of a profession? You know, the characteristics that you assess in a profession. We look at the specialized knowledge. We look at professional autonomy. We look at service orientation. We look at ethical codes. We looked at credentialing, formal education and training, and professional association. In deliberating on each of these items one by one, we to the conclusion that the profession, the profession in our sector has not fully exhibited the characteristics of profession in existence, because there's room for improvement in a whole lot of things that are to be done. So as a result of the position of no. Then on the other one, we talked about, are there challenges in the regulation professions in Nigeria, and suggest remedial action? The big to that question is a yes. We have adduced to this. One of the reasons is conflict of interest, because in terms of putting on the regulation of each profession, you see that people, rather than looking at the interest of the members and the body as a whole, and as it affects the nation, they put their personal interest first in coming up with the regulation that sets up the professional body. Also, we look at bureaucratic bottlenecks. What are these? These are hindrances we have in probably getting whatever regulation you have for each professional body approved by the government. And you see a whole lot of this come to play when this is being done. Another challenge is inclusiveness. Inclusiveness. You know, there is proliferation of a lot of splinter professional bodies that ordinarily they are supposed to complement the existing ones. So in order to be able to overcome this challenge, there is a need for inclusiveness. A typical example that came to mind, and that one of the ones that the group deliberated on, was the issue of fintech. Fintech has come to stay, and fintech in banking, of course, is challenging banking, and there's the likelihood that you see them wanting to establish an association by themselves at a later time, whereas they're all operating the same banking. And in order to avoid this, there's a need for inclusiveness in bringing them into the professional association that controls banking in Nigeria. Another issue that came up was the issue of mortgage bankers, wherein the solution that they provided was to bring them in as part of council members in order to avert such a problem happening at a later time. Then also we talk about regulatory laxity. In coming up with a lot of regulations that control the professional association, you find out that there are a lot of lacunas in most of the regulations. And as a result of that, you have issues, with professional bodies. And as such, you have conflict between different professional bodies. The interpretation of problems is one of the key challenges as well. Then the enforcement of problems and governance structure. In terms of regulation that sets up professional bodies, right, you'll find out that sometimes you have a lot of issues. One of the ones that we identified was governance structure, wherein there is no appropriate governance structure. Say in terms of succession, you find out that there is infighting in terms of putting things in place, and we have a lot of that happens in our various professional bodies, which ordinarily each professional body is ashamed to let out and is being managed individually, and this is one of the challenges that we have. Then the next question is enumerate the hindrances to inter and intra-professional or professional harmony and how to overcome them. The hindrances identified by this financial 2, superiority complex, and a case study that we gave was between CIBN, CITN, and ICANN. It is of the opinion of the members of the group that there's nothing that stops CITN, CIBN, and ICANN in coming up with a joint statement on a national issue, with the federal government. Also, we talked about lack of linkage between different professional bodies. There are professional bodies that have similar structure, and it's easy for members to integrate themselves into these professional bodies. Now, the professional bodies have made it a bit difficult for members to join freely. And one of the case example we gave was between CIBN, CITN, and ICANN. And another dissenting view that came in terms of that was the fact that each professional body needs to respect the syllabus of each professional body, so that if there's a need for there to be a linkage, right, they should incorporate into their own syllabus the areas that can make the linkage to be easy and seamless between and amongst these different professional bodies. How do we overcome this problem? One of the things we came up was for there to be respect for individual professional bodies and the regulation of each professional body. And also, there's a need to respect boundaries. If we call ourselves, Charter Institute of Professional Bankers, ICANN should not try to delve into the work of CIBN. CIBN should not try to encroach into CITN, or CITN encroaching into CIIN. The next is list obstacles to ethical practices by professionals and how they might be eliminated. And we know the country we are in right now, even though we are praying for a better Nigeria, but a lot of practices have become endemic and have become normal, right? For example, this is Enugu, this is my second time in Enugu, but in Lagos, being mad is a normal process in Lagos. Now, so we have adopted madness and some sharp practices to be the norm in Nigeria. So in terms of ethical practices, some of the things that we see as hindrances or obstacles to them is gratification. You find out that a whole lot of time, rather than following the ethical codes, you prefer to get gratified to be able to do what you are supposed to do. And we see this as one of the obstacles. Then also we look at regulatory laxity. It's one of the hindrances as well. Then we talk about non-adherence to ethical codes. We know that each professional body does what it is necessary by making sure that their members understand the ethical codes that they need to adhere to. And these are part of the things that they let them know before becoming members. And when they become members, these are things they sing into their heads all the time to ensure that they abide by in representing the professional body. But you find out that the members do not adhere to these ethical codes. And this is one of the issues. How can this be eliminated? Some of the things that we came up with in this finance sector group is one, the establishment of disciplinary committee tribunal to correct and to bring to book any member that is found wanting or who has gone against the ethical codes that has been given by the professional body. Also, we talked about advocacy in the group and ethical certification. What is ethical certification? Ethical certification is what brings each member of a professional body to retrain them and to bring back to their knowledge the ethical codes that they need to abide with. And as a result of that, maybe short classes are being given to them, short exams, to ensure that they really know what the ethical code is. So when there's an infraction, you know that it's an intentional act on the part of this particular member. Then also, we came up with the idea of signing of oaths to uphold ethical codes. So with this signing of oath, we know that when they go against the oath that they have signed, then whatever thing they face, of course, will be a consequence of going against the ethical codes. The next question is, how does the political class and the government bureaucracy negatively affect professionalism in Nigeria, and suggest how professions can overcome this effect? Some of the things that the group came up with were poor leadership, bad governance, epitome of corruption, because politicians are seen as epitome of corruption in Nigeria and the world. Then we talk about weak institutions that we have in Nigeria, and also ethnicism. Now, what are the solutions? One of the greatest solutions that we said will eliminate this is synergies between professional bodies. Then what national issues require APBN intervention? Right now, there are 3 that we identified, which are of national importance and are current. One of them is the currency redesign. The second one is the population census that is about to come up. And the last one is the election issue. I know that if you go into that debate, we'll not finish this retreat as scheduled. Then lastly, they said, please enumerate what APBN needs to do differently to enhance its image. This question we find critical to enhancing the brand of APBN. So as such, some of the things that the team came up with: 1, advocacy; 2, nexus with APBN state chapters. We discovered from our discussion that there is no linkage, there is no marriage between the national body of APBN and its state chapters. Rather than reporting and all, they do not give them direction. So they are just moving as like a pilot, like an airplane that has no pilot. So nexus with APBN state chapters will help to eliminate it. Then the APBN on its own, as a conglomerate and a body that regulates, a body that is in charge of all professional bodies, should serve as an epitome of integrity to all professional bodies. Then again, we said the APBN should engage in corporate social responsibility to enhance its image. And lastly, most of us understand that if I ask anybody in this room what is happening today, I'm sure a lot of us can tell me what just happened 2 seconds ago. How? Because we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on all forms of social media. When was the last time you saw APBN on Twitter? When was the last time you saw APBN on Instagram? When was the last time you saw APBN on Facebook? If you do not blow your trumpet, nobody will be able to sing your drum. And on that note, I draw the curtain on our deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Built environment. No, Gajana Basu. No, we'll examine it after. They are making submissions now. After we'll discuss the submission. You are welcome, sir.
Please, can we have one group? All right. Good morning, my colleagues, and I'm representing the Built Environment Group. My name is Architect Enyiben Ebo. I am the chairman of that group, and my secretary is Town Planner Ashiru. I also double as the presenter, so I'm wearing two caps. Now, my group, having gone through the paper presentations yesterday, decided to break down the three presentations into a number of broad headings. The first was to do a self-appraisal of professions within our cluster. And the first question we asked ourselves was, what's the public perception of professions within the built environment? And again, we started by the fact that sometimes it's difficult to assess yourself because you may think you're doing very well, whereas the public thinks you're not doing too well. But in spite of that, we're able to remove the cloak of being members of that cluster and looking at ourselves from the point of view of the general public. And what are the challenges that face our profession? Number one, and probably the most serious challenge that everybody has come to associate with that industry, is the issue of building collapses. And for those of you in Lagos and some other, maybe Abuja and one or two other states within the country, you'll notice that hardly any month goes by without the news of a building collapsing. And the question is, why has this become a national embarrassment? And of course, an embarrassment to professions within that industry. We x-rayed some of the problems and came to the conclusion that, number one, most professions within that group, just like I've heard from the first presenter, are saddled with the problem of internal wrangling. Now there's fight for supremacy, who is more important than the other, and people encroach on the turfs of others. And this has caused a situation where in the course of doing business, people tend to do what they are not experts at doing. And we also find a situation where there's a lack of synergy between professionals in practice and those in government. Oftentimes, those in government are seen to be circumventing the work of those who are in practice. And you find situations where professionals have complained that most times, because those in government work under authority, they sometimes do things that go against the interest of those who are outside. And they can't challenge some of these issues because it's your boss that is telling you to do those things, even when some of those things are not in the interest of the profession. And of course, we know that at some point, life is a leveler. Whatever you are, you end up in practice, even if you retire and want to do one or two things. So you come and meet that problem that you created in the first place. And so what were the solutions that the group prepared in terms of getting these challenges put behind us? Number one, we felt that APBN is a good platform for synergizing the works of all the professions within that cluster. And so we recommended that APBN should set up a committee within that cluster to look into conflicts that arise between professions within that cluster. You have issues of the engineer complaining that the architect is doing his job, architect complaining that the builder is encroaching on his stuff, the quantity surveyor, so many things. So that committee should be able to sit down and look at the different professions holistically and be able to identify where one is encroaching on the other. And also we came to the conclusion that sometimes you may have overlaps in terms of functions as in the course of the day-to-day carrying out of their functions. And when these overlaps do occur, that committee should be able to find ingenious ways of ensuring that none of the professions is compromised and that the solutions are found within them. And again, that committee is also supposed to look into the issue of government policies that sometimes create conflicts among the professional groups and be able to alert government that, look, this policy that you are bringing into operation is going to cause problems for members of the cluster. Again, we looked at the issue of the way and manner in which laws are promulgated. I think I heard it in the last presentation, where a group of people just sit down and feel, oh, we want to be independent of the parent body, and we clandestinely approach a few legislators, and before you know anything, it's at the final hearing that you hear, oh, there's a law at the State Assembly or National Assembly to set up a new body, which would be doing almost the same thing as what an existing body is doing. So we feel that there should be a lot of openness in matters of legislation. When a new law affecting a certain industry is to be promulgated, all the stakeholders within that cluster should be able to make contributions into that law. Again, it goes to say the same thing applies to regulation within clusters. If any state or any, even a professional group wants to advance the cause of its members by approaching government to help them enforce certain things, you should be able to run it by other members of that cluster to ensure that that thing you are seeking is not undermining some other person or making that person will not cause problems for the profession on the long run. Now, we looked at how do we confront policymakers when it comes to policies that have to do with our industry. Again, we examined a situation where sometimes certain powerful members of government tend to, maybe because they are from a certain profession, they use that as an opportunity to drive policies that even they themselves know will be injurious to the harmony of that industry, just because they want to be seen by their profession to be doing things that are in line with what their professions will want. So we should be able to tackle such powerful government officials and say, no, that you cannot do this because what you're doing is encroaching on the work of so person, or it is not the legal way to go about it. Even if you must do it, you must follow due process in getting these things done. Then we looked at what are the obstacles within our professional bodies in ensuring that good practices are maintained, because we talked about professionalism, and for you to be a professional, you must practice your trade in the best way possible. We also x-rayed the fact that we, maybe back in the day, it used to work. At least when I was growing up, I used to see collaborations between firms. So you have somebody who is probably an architect, he collaborates with an engineer, he collaborates with a quantity surveyor. So they have a consortium such that if a job comes to that office, if it is architectural, the architects will do it. If it's engineering, the engineers will do it. If it's quantities, the quantity surveyors will do it. And that way, we had a situation where there was collaboration amongst the professionals. But what we find these days, there's a competition to outdo the other. So an architect gets a job, he wants to do the architecture, he wants to do the engineering, he wants to do everything about it so that he collects all the fees. And that's where some of these problems start happening. Or in this scenario, that he engages either students or people who are not registered to do these things, just so that you cut down costs. And we say that just like used to happen back in the day, we should be able to form partnerships, incorporating members of other professional groups into a consortium or a company. If you want to register a company and you intend to do other things, get a partner who is an expert in that field to be part of your group so that you can do those things legally and you will not have some of the frictions that we have today. We also looked at the issue of technology, that technology is a way that we can cut down on a lot of the opaqueness that is predominant in our industry. Take, for instance, if our various professional groups and regulatory groups have online presence, such that if somebody approaches me and says he's a land surveyor, for instance, I can go to SOCON website and I type it in and ask, just like you ask Google, am I a man? And Google will tell you whether you're a man or a woman. So you can go to his site or the website of Koren or NSC, sorry, SOCON or the Nigerian, what did I say? The Surveyors Institute, and find out whether that person is really a surveyor or not. So that way the public can, from get-go, be able to know who is a professional or not. Then also in the line of technology, we should be able to come up with processes whereby a lot of information about development is readily available online. It's possible these days to, once a building is approved, to be able to, from the coordinates, even locate that site on Google Maps. And you'll get, maybe not all the time, but at least in the last 1 or 2 weeks, the image of that plot and be able to know whether there's a development on that plot or not. These are things that are available even from a smartphone. We also looked at the issue of, like, for instance, approvals, that we can digitize the processes of approval such that drawings now carry a barcode, and that barcode contains every information about the approval of that building. So if you go to a site and ask them for the approved drawings, all you need is a device, like a smartphone that has a smart barcode reader. Once you put it on it, it will give you information about who the client is, who the architect, who's the engineer, and everybody that's involved in that process. So it's easy to be a watchdog of society. If you see a building coming up in your neighborhood and you see that something is not too right about that building, you can discreetly go to that site and by some means be able to know 1 or 2 things about what's going on in that thing. So we also looked at the issue of the Freedom of Information Act, that we have a Freedom of Information Act, which gives everybody access to information about everything. So rather than say a building comes up and nobody knows who the promoters of that building are, we should be able to approach the relevant agencies of government and get real-time information about what that building is all about. Then we put minimizing duplication of functions. Now, again, we've had, I mean, a lot of you must have read from the news over time where there are wranglings between one profession and the other. And these wranglings may not be unjustified, because sometimes in the course of, carrying out a project, you may have a situation where functions would overlap. I'll give you an example. If you're doing a road, for instance, and it's part of a building project, and you have a quantity survey on that project, And the quantity surveyor says, because I'm the quantity surveyor on this project, I should quantify the roads. Or in a building like this, you have an electrical engineer and a quantity surveyor. The electrical engineer says, I best know how to quantify the electricals for this building, because even for me as an architect, if I look at an electrical drawing, all I see is just locations of switches and location of lighting points. It just shows me that this switch controls that light point. But that drawing does not tell me how the cable from that switch gets to that light point. Most times it may not go as the crow flies. It may go that way to some device, then from there it comes this way. And if you're not somebody in that field, you may not be able to quantify it properly. But then you have a situation where the quantity surveyor says, it's my turf, so I must quantify it. And the engineer says, no, you don't understand how that works. And when we have such friction, we also we often recommend that between the quantity surveyor and the engineer, they should work together. The quantity surveyor should get the engineering bills from the get the bills from the engineer and incorporate into the general bill of quantities for that project. So that level, that type of collaboration is what we have recommended to ensure that we minimize duplication of functions within the industry. And we also say we encourage our various agencies concerned with development control issues to be digitized. It starts from the lands registry. So when you get a survey plan, you are able to check, number one, whether that survey plan belongs to the person who is telling you that he owns that land. You are also able to check the coordinates and ensure that the coordinates fall within the place that they say it should fall in. Because sometimes you may have a surveyor prepare a survey plan for you, and when they chart the coordinates of that land, it falls on a road, or it falls on a place where government has interest. So with digitization, you're able to check some of these things. And again, the development control agencies are able to give information to the general public about any development. I just got to learn this morning that in a place like Abuja, most of the expatriates, if you want to rent your building, they go to development control and check whether, number one, it has approval. Number two, whether it has all the necessary certificates of completion and all of that, before they even come to pay rent for that building or to rent that building. So these are some of the information which you may think they don't matter until something happens and you have to go to court, that you discover that a lot of this information is necessary in the first place. So we encourage, that is Abuja because it's the federal capital. I'm not sure it happens in a lot of other states. So a lot of our states should encourage investment in technology so that it will make the work of everybody a lot easier. Then we also look at what are the national issues that from our cluster we would want the APBN to drive. And number one, we looked at the issue of domestication of the building code. Now, the building code document, which of course was approved at the federal level for use within the state. But of course, we all know that issues of development control in Nigeria are vested in the states. So only state governments and local governments can give approvals for you to put up any building on any land anywhere in the country. And so the states, a lot of states have not yet domesticated this building code. And so what happened? In some states, they are still working with building regulations that are as old as 30 years, some in the 80s, some have not been renewed over time. But the moment the various houses of assembly are able to domesticate this building code, that code spells out the functions of every professional within the industry, and also has what they call compliance forms, which both the developer and the approving agency would have to insist on and ensure that at each stage of foundation, the proper professionals will have to sign off. and for all other stages, they have to sign off on those things. So that would help in a great deal to reduce or minimize the haphazard developments we have in most of our cities and towns. We also talked about standardization of specification, especially in the building industry. If we say for a certain class of neighborhood, this should be the kind of width of road. If we make it a standard that every neighborhood, in addition to the road, must have a walkway so that you don't have vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic intermingling, that should be standardized. If you go to Benin Republic, just across the corner here, you discover that the Okadas have their own lane, the cars have their own lane, the pedestrians have their own lane. So you don't have a situation where Okadas or bikes just run into people anyhow and start struggling the road with cars. So such standardization would be very necessary in our industry to be able to get some of these things done. Now, we also advocated that the APBN should be able to speak to national issues concerning, well, our various professions. Take, for instance, the issue of the building industry. Now, you have a budget of, let's say, 10 trillion naira. And of that 10 trillion naira, 8 trillion is for, after servicing all the debts, of course. In these days, the debt servicing is more than what is generated. So you have a situation where what is now left for capital expenditure is just a paltry sum compared to what has gone into recurrent expenditure. We should be able to emphasize to government that what actually drives the economy and what brings about jobs is the expenditure on capital projects. Because how many civil servants we have as a percentage of the population of the country? They're not up to 5%. All the civil servants put together compared to the population, up to 5%. So if you spend so much on a small percentage of people, and you now have so little to a sector that would have the potential of employing so many people, then of course your economy is not doing well and would not be sustainable. So we should be able to speak to sometimes the budget, sometimes government policies on things like privatization, things like selling of national assets and what effect it's going to have on the industry and how that would affect the bottom line at the end of the day. So we also looked at the issue of also coming to building collapse. We say that whenever we have collapses, we shouldn't have a situation where professions within that sector are giving discordant reports. You find out that the builders will go there, they'll make a statement. The architects will go there, they'll make a statement. The town planners will go, they'll make a statement. That going forward, we should have a harmonized, whenever there's such an issue, all the professions should come together and support that would incorporate the contribution of every profession within that sector in whatever collapse it is, so that we don't have a situation where people, even before they know what is happening, some people are already going to the press and making statements. So that would be something that at APBN's level, we should be able to come up with such statements, which would carry more weight than when individual professional bodies do so. Then I think I talked about that. The percentage of GDP to that what is in our budget on year in, year out is a far cry from what the global standards are in terms of percentage of your GDP to what your expenditure on capital project is. And of course, if you want to stimulate your economy, you must stimulate your private sector and you must stimulate your capital expenditure. So that would need to, something we should always look into each time there's a budget and ensure that government does what is needful. We also recognize the dwindling resources of government to be able to speak to how much of borrowing that government should do, because they say there's no free lunch, even in Freetown. So when we keep borrowing, we are simply postponing the evil day, and our children are the ones that will pay those prices. And they say that a good father or a good parent leaves an inheritance for his children. In the case of Nigeria, we are leaving debts for our children, and I'm not sure they are going to forgive us for that. So that, in a nutshell, is the presentation from the construction industry sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is the medical. Yeah. No, it is very healthy. Oh. No, there will be questions. Just note your questions. After we'll discuss all the questions together.
Good afternoon. I think we have spent a lot of time now, so I'm going to be very brief. I want to stand on the existing protocol. So I'm from medical group, and in the medical group, unfortunately, our number is actually the least. Please, can we have your attention? The medical group, we have only two professions that are actually present. We have the Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists of Nigeria, and then we also have Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. The other professions in the health sector are not around. So my name is Professor James Dament. I was made to share the group, and at the same time, I was asked to give the presentation on behalf of the group. The secretary is pharmacist. Okay, Azike Joseph from PSN. So I will briefly make the presentation on behalf of the group. So we try to look at the questions that were before us and trying to see how we can answer them based on the challenges that is affecting the health sector. You all agree with me that we are having a very bad health sector. And that is why on a daily basis, we are witnessing a lot of Nigerians traveling out of the country for medical tourism. And this is because all is not well with us in the health sector. And so we are very happy that this type of discussion is actually happening. But unfortunately, I would have loved that all of us, how I wish all the health professionals in the health sector are around. However, for those of us that are available, we have been able to come up with our own position on the issue before us for discussion. The first question is, have all the professions in your sector exhibited the characteristics of profession in her existence? We all know from the presentation yesterday about the characteristics of being a profession. The answer we all collectively agreed is that it is capital N-O, it's no. And the major challenge is that there is no self-governance, because self-governance is one of the characteristics of a profession in the health sector. You all agree with me that a lot of things is even happening. Even when you look at it from the Federal Ministry of Health, in fact, they have made it in such a way that if you are not a medical doctor, you will not become Minister of Health. And so it negates even the issue of being professional. If you go to our various hospitals, you will discover that most of the departments, in fact, there was even works department is headed by a medical doctor. And so it actually interferes, it's against what we are talking of the characteristics of profession. You go to our lab, you discover that medical doctors are the one heading medical laboratory. There was a time, yes, you know Dr. Ohi, he was appointed, he's a medical doctor, he was appointed to go and head NAFTA. So it's still against, the characteristics of being a profession. So it's a big problem for us in the health sector. Now, the second question is that, are there challenges in the regulation of profession, and how do we suggest ways of how we can remedy them? There are many challenges in the health sector. The first one is that, it's all centered on issue of being self-governed. And each of these professions, you have laws that ensure that you are supposed to practice within the ambit of your profession. For example, the Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria is charged with the responsibility of, you are supposed to go and inspect medical laboratories, both in public and private sector. And on many instances, many times, you discover that when the Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria set up a team and they are going out for inspection to ensure that the right equipment, the right personnel, and the right work is being done, when they get to a hospital, they will bar them that you cannot come there to inspect. So it's a challenge that is affecting even the practice generally. The pharmacists too, they have also very big challenge. But the good aspect is that even their act, it used to be Pharmacists Council of Nigeria. So Pharmacists Council, but the good aspect is they have a new law, which has been ascended by the president. And the new law is Pharmacy Council of Nigeria. So there's a difference between Pharmacists Council of Nigeria and Pharmacy Council of Nigeria. And so with this new law, it will actually go a long way in ensuring that it solves a lot of the problem. And then sometimes too, you discover that even in the law, it is restricted that if you are working in public sector, you shouldn't go ahead and start having community pharmacy. You have a pharmacy again, so you cannot be in two places. But with the new law, we are hopeful that it will address most of those challenges that are there. Now, part of the regulations that we have is that we have government interfering with even the regulations of different councils. For example, if you look at it in some of the councils, some of the responsibility is actually rest on the governing board of that council. But sometimes government will just wake up one day and now take up even the powers of the governing council, and sometimes even go ahead and even make appointments, which they know that based on the law, they don't have the powers to do that. So these are part of the challenges. And then we will also notice that some regulatory bodies within the health sector, they will take their act to National Assembly for amendment. And what they will do as part of the amendment is by interfering with the functions of already existing council, which there are actually problems. For example, what happened last year was that MDCN went to National Assembly that they want to amend their act. And in the act, they brought everybody, PSN, AMSN, Physiotherapy Society of Nigeria, all other people under them. And already what they want to do, they said they will be doing. It's already been done by other existing regulatory bodies. So it's actually a challenge interfering with the regulations of other professions. So the second one is enumerate the hindrances to inter and intra-profession or professionals harmony, and how can they be overcome. Which the other one we talked about the inter is among the professionals. Sometimes you will have some conflict, and part of the conflict is those that are working in private. They don't want those that are working in government to come and start owning community pharmacy. In medical lab, for every profession, there's always a humble beginning. There are people that went through what we call School of Medical Laboratory Technology, and they have associate certificate that was given to them by the Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria. And as time goes on, the profession metamorphosed and university took over completely the training. And university issued Bachelor of Medical Laboratory Science. And so sometimes you will have this conflict between those that have BMLS and those that have associate. So these are part of the intra-professional conflict. Now, in terms of the interprofessional conflict, basically, actually on leadership, both at the level of Federal Ministry of Health and also at the various teaching hospitals. And it all centered on issue of self-governance, allow professions to govern themselves. If you are a pharmacy, you should be seen to practice pharmacy, and then you should also head your own department. If you are a clinician, you are a medical doctor, you should head your own department. If you are a medical laboratory scientist, you should also practice medical laboratory science as a profession and also head your department. But these are issues that is actually bringing conflict to an extent that some of these professions approach the law court for interpretation of the act establishing that council. The court gave judgment, but the implementation was denied by the leadership of the hospital. Now, so, and part of it too, sometimes discover that government will just give circulars on remuneration, and then you discover that there is poor disparity in terms of the remuneration. And that one too is also a very big problem. Sometimes when you talk of hazard allowance, when all of you work in the same environment, you are exposed. There is no one life that is better than the other one. Yes, if there is an infection, all of you will be infected. And then you discover that go come up with a circular, and then with that circular, there will be a wide allowance, wages. And in this situation, those are part of the issues that give room to conflict. And then how do we overcome them? All that is needed is for us to ensure that there is full implementation of the scheme of service that is released by Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation. If I have a scheme of service, let the authority, the management, ensure that the scheme of service is fully implemented. If you give me what federal government says I should be given, I will not worry about whatever your own scheme of service is. But when you come and deny me that I will not rise to become a director, it becomes a problem. Okay. The other issues are we should encourage teamwork. Honestly, if you look at it in the health sector, not only in Nigeria, globally, it's a teamwork. Nobody, no one profession can do it alone. And so there should be room for all of us. Let all of us know that for the patient to get well, it is the result of our collective teamwork. Everybody has a role to play. If you go outside the country, in fact, when the patient is improving, the doctor will not say, we are winning. He's not say, I am winning. We are winning. But in Nigeria, it's not like that. It's just one profession. I will say, I am winning. Okay? So part of even what we need to do is that there must be a deliberate change of leadership in the health sector, right from the Federal Ministry of Health down to what is happening in the various hospitals. If some of you remember, we have some professions in the health sector that we are before National Assembly and we are advocating that the act establishing teaching hospitals has to be amended for all inclusiveness so that the patient can have the best services. Once we get it from the next question is, we are to list the obstacle to ethical practices by professionals and how they might be eliminated. The first problem we have in the health sector is the issue of leadership. Leadership is a very big problem. If we get the leadership right, then I think the story will change. The second one is just lack of full implementation of our scheme of service of the whole professions within the health sector, and also the laws governing each profession. If those things are done, that will be fine. Then the very big problem is that we lack a forum where all of us professionals should come together, sit down and discuss among ourselves. We don't have that forum. So everybody is on his own. Sometimes we just go to National Assembly, we will just go as if we are fighting. But we need to have a forum where all of us, in fact, if you look at the budgetary allocation to the health system, it's very poor. And all of us are responsible. If all of us can come together and now say, no, we can advocate and we can get something better that will help us to move forward. So the sixth point now is what national issues require APBN intervention. There are many. For example, even in the health sector, the fact that all of us, the professionals, we don't have a common forum that we can come and discuss among ourselves. APBN can do a lot by ensuring that call a meeting and summon all of us that we must come by all means. Let interfere and let them listen to all of us. What is the problem? Why are we not having a common forum that all of us can come and sit down and discuss among ourselves and see how we can have unity, and push ahead for the betterment of Nigerians? Yesterday, one of the characteristics is that professions are for the society. Whatever we are doing is not for yourself alone, but for the society. But what we are doing in the health sector, I don't think we are doing it for the society. We are doing it for ourselves. So APBN leadership has a greater role to actually play to ensure that we are doing what we are expected to do. They need to also engage with the Federal Ministry of Health, Office of Head of Civil Service of the Federation. I want to thank them because I know that last week they had summoned us to Abuja and they led us for a courtesy visit to the Office of Head of Civil Service of the Federation. So those are part of the role. We also advocate too that the leadership of APBN can also advocate with the Office of Attorney General of the Federation. Because these court judgments that are given, and you discover that departments, ministries, and parastatal agencies decided that they will not implement, and it's not good for us as a country. Every country, if we have a lawless country, if we have a country that there is a lot of impunity, then we are heading to a doom. And so there must be, we should be governed by rule of law. So if there is a law, if there is a court judgment, the leadership of APBN should ensure that those court judgments, they should interfere, they should intervene, they should advocate to the Attorney General of the Federation to give directives that those court judgments are properly implemented for the betterment of all of us. We also advocate too with what they are doing. They still have a lot of they can advocate for all professionals, not only within the health sector, but they should also, as our leaders, they should advocate to ensure that all professionals in the whole sector in Nigeria should be properly recognized, and then they should be able to be given the opportunity to discharge their responsibility. The last one, please enumerate what APBN needs to do differently. Enhance our image. The first one is we would want them to ensure that there is more advocacy, both in electronic and print media, about the activities of APBN. It has to be enhanced. They should also enlighten the general public on the right practice of professionals all over, not only one sector, but all. Let people know, let the general public know, so that tomorrow, even if I'm building a house, who and who am I supposed to contact? So this should be what we expect them to do. The other one is to, well, we have talked about enhance the publicity of APBN activity, and they should also engage National Assembly on the laws, because since APBN is an umbrella of all professions, we am aware that not only in the health sector, but there are laws of other professional bodies that is even being passed by National Assembly, and yet they are not fully implemented. So I would love that APBN take it as a challenge and then see how this actually advocacy should be their paramount activity. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have seen that at least we have looked at the issues as they are. We have so many issues to look at before the end of the day, from conflict of interest to problems of bureaucracy, to the issue of inclusivity, to laxity in terms of regulators and professionals, the structures of governance, currency redesign, population, census, elections management, domestication of codes, standardization of certification, capital projections and capital budgets, collapsed buildings and reports that are divergent in nature, dwindling resources of government and what should be done and the impact on borrowing, wage discrimination, encouraging teamwork, common forum for professionals that have similar things to do, enforcement of court judgments, and a varied issues. It is now time for us to try to focus on the three and come up with what will be easier to digest, what will be easier to be presented, what will appear as a common front. So what we're trying to do now is to seek clarification from the presenters if you have doubts on some of the things that the presenter is not clear to you, or you think that there are still things that are not captured in the presentations that were done so far. So we'll give the next 15 minutes to do that discussion so that hopefully by 2 o'clock we'll break for lunch. And when we come back, we'll listen to the communique and adopt it. So now is the time to dot the I's and cross the T's from the presentation and ask relevant questions and clarifications and make further discussions. So members can now raise issues can ask questions, can elaborate on other presentations that are not theirs. Yes. One by one. President is still insisting on this is one by one. Okay. Yes, but that please, what we want is that let's take the issue. Which one was the first issue? Can you project? Can we put the can we put the issues on the board? So characteristics of the profession is the first matter that we are going to look at. So Prof has already raised his hand. Are you on that page? Okay. Okay, let's do this in that way. Let me say every professional profess that the only thing is that you are not an academic professor, but you profess in your own area. So let's see whether, let's go by the directive of the president strictly. Those that have issues with characteristics of profession in our existence, apart from the things that I've done, or if there are any issues, the general opinion on that matter is that professionals attempt to show all the characteristics, except that there are exceptions. And the exceptions are that on matters that concern autonomy of the professions, that there are some wages. Is there any dissenting voice on that? Thank you very much. So that one is taken home. The second issue is that, yes, sir. No, the draft communique is coming after lunch. We are just trying to streamline the discussions that we had so far.
This group, when they mentioned characteristics of profession, I didn't hear legislation. Huh? It's implied. Okay.
The second major issue is that are there challenges in the regulation of professions and suggest remedial actions? The general consensus on that matter is that there are a lot of challenges on the regulation, particularly in the regulators not working together with those that are in practice. And also that there are laxity and some little issue of corruption by the regulators. Is there additional issues that want to raise on that? The third issue is hindrances among professional harmony and how to overcome them. The general opinion is that there are obstacles and that it is because the professionals are not seen as equals. Some others see themselves as superior to some others, and that creates enmity. And so there is no harmony. And the opinion is that we should respect each profession and allow people to practice their own, where there are things that appear to be problematic. APBN should set up a standing committee that is going to ensure that there is arbitration and identify areas of conflict and make a position that this is supposed to be for this. This is where there is clear case of conflict. APBN committee should assert its position that that is what is obtainable. The only addition I'm bringing to this is that the people that made the presentation, they want the committee to be sectorial. I think it is better to have one committee for all the sectors so that that committee can look at conflicts arising from different, and the composition of the committee also should also cut across all the sectors. If we have about 5 people with a chairman and a secretary and 3 others representing all the sectors, and we look at individuals that have the respect of the professions and make them part of that committee, they will be able to do that kind of reconciliation. Are we at home with that? Thank you very much. The next is list obstacles of ethical practices by professionals and how they may be eliminated. The obstacles are internal wrangling, lack of teamwork, government interference, and lack of funding, and a lot of others. And the way to eliminate them is, as suggested by the presentation, is unity of purpose, respect for each profession, and things like that, as enumerated. Unless if there are other comments that members who want to do. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. President.
Instead of using the word government interference, let's divide it. Let's have political interference and then bureaucratic interferences. Because government is supposed to be on the side of the professionals, but the bureaucrats abuse their offices and interfere. The same thing with politicians. So I would prefer we use that terminology instead of just saying government. We specify political interference and bureaucratic interferences.
Any other comments? So thank you very much. The next is, how does the political class and government bureaucracy negatively affect professionalism in Nigeria? So just how professions can overcome these effects. It is by participation. And the easiest way around it is, once the professionals do not show interest in what they do, they will continue to do it the way they know best. It is mostly they do these things out of ignorance, particularly the legislatures and the rest of them. We went to the National Assembly. Someone was talking about laws that are made and that you don't hear about it, they are done in secrecy and all that. It will interest you to know that even the members of the National Assembly themselves, majority of them don't even know what is happening. And one of them confessed to us when we went as a team recently, just before the elections. And there were supposed to be about 3 bills that we're going to consider that day. And we went to them and we are trying to say that this is our interest in the bills. And we met about 5 of them individually. The issue is that almost all of them did not even know what is the matter that is going to be tabled that day in the assembly. So we had to tell them what is going to come up. We want to tell them what is the problem. They are taking notes. Then that if they go to the plenary, they will be able to raise those issues. So you find out that the real issue is actually lack of knowledge. So members will have to now be educating their representatives on the things that are actually the problem with the professions. And that way you find them very willing, except to add that majority of the time, they want you to give them money. The easiest way for them to support you is that you have to give them money. If you don't support it with money, it will not generate their interest. So I don't know how we are going to solve that one. Yes, sir.
I was just coming to the point you were making. First, I want to ask, where is the position of our lobby group? Or are we afraid to exercise that power of lobby? Did I were afraid? I had a situation in where I'm coming from. Let me just spare the name of the state. But we wrote a position paper regarding the town planning situation of an urban renewal. And then when we took it to the house, the first thing they asked the people we sent was, where is money to process this thing? And I condemned them as leader, not openly, but I was so furious when I came back. But surprisingly, fellow engineer professional called me, look, this is the difference between us and lawyers. Lawyers would go to any extent to ensure that their position is adopted, including if they say bring money. Of course, that is left for leadership of APBN to conclude. But they will go to any extent to make sure that their positions are adopted, because they are already seeing that if that is adopted in policies of government, is going to enrich and favor many of them. So my question now is, what happens to our lobby group in a powerful body like APBN? That's a question. Thank you.
So, thank you very much. So additionally, apart from the reconciliation committee, there should be also a lobby committee. But ironically, I don't know how to put it easily. Lobby in Nigeria means giving money. So I don't know how you are going to lobby without money, but we can discuss it. You see, President said we should say we have immunity. We should say anything we want to say. Like me, now I have my immunity apart from the one that the president is providing. That's why I can tell you the facts the way they are. Honestly, unfortunately, the easiest way to lobby is to give money. So if there are other ways that you can lobby, it's not as effective as money. You can use your tribal man, you can use your religious man to lobby. But once money comes in, it will diminish that other factor. So if you want to lobby to your religious group, join money with it, it will go faster. If you want to go through tribal, join money with it, it will go faster. If you want to know, lobby about the things you have done before, join money with it, it will go faster. It may reduce the amount you are going to pay, but definitely without money, once money comes in from the other side, your matter is not going to be there. No, I can assure you that one. I know it very well. So, yes, sir.
I am very Dr. Victor Agomwa is my name. I'm very uncomfortable with a lobbying committee going with us as professionals. Well, I don't mind a lobbying activity, but we should be mindful of that name, putting it like a lobbying committee. Let's think of something else that will look, yes, with what we do.
Strategic committee. Anyway, mobilization committee, intergovernment relation committee. But the good thing is that we understand what we want it to be done. It is just the nomenclature that is our problem. So that one is not a problem really, because the people will dot the T and I cross the I. What I'm saying is that concerns have been raised. Let us not use the derogatory word. But you'll find out that lobby is not a bad word. Lobby is not a bad word. It is a standard international known way of getting things done. It is not a bad thing at all. It is only when you bring money into it that it becomes bad. So long as we're not going to say we're going to use money to lobby, if it is just to lobby on the strength of our conviction, but it is better to avoid anything that is going to give us a stigma. So, like strategic committee can be in place of the lobby committee. Yes. Where somebody has taken away the. So we're on how does political class and government bureaucracy negatively affect professionalism, and like we have said, that there is also the problem of those professionals in government and those outside government. Those in government try as much as possible to look as if you that is outside government don't matter. So how do we now get our colleagues in government to be in sync with those of us in the field? And I believe it is a matter that professional bodies should be able to be talking to their create forum that there will be interactions between those in government and those outside government. If individual professional bodies are able to establish that forum of discussion so that they will understand the feelings of those in practice, I believe we will go a long way in solving that problem. For those of us in the finance sector, I'm sure a lot of that is done. Talking to people, like I've said, fundamentally, you may be thinking that they know your problem, but ordinarily, they may not know. So you have to, first of all, let them know. So there must be that level of interaction that most of the time, people will be ignorant, but some people will think that they are arrogant. You see, if I don't know anything and I'm looking as if I'm aloof, somebody will think that it is because of my position, that's why I'm being arrogant. But the real issue is that that person may be ignorant. And the moment you now inform the person, you will see that he is as available as any other thing. So let's try to develop the rapport. Let's see how we are able to talk to our colleagues in government. I think it will reduce this dichotomy. The other issue that is associated with that is the fact that those in government will also want to do the things that you are doing for their benefits. They become the contractors themselves. Instead of allowing you to have a firm of architecture that is going to do some of the designs for them, you see somebody that is employed with government, he will have some small boys that will give them 100,000, 200,000 and take a work of 500 million and they will do it for him. So that is also a matter that we need to allow them also partake. The easiest way to do it is also make them part of your governance of your own firm, so that when there is some big contract, they should also share part of it. And that way they will not be bothered to do their own different things. So I believe we can do better in terms of our relationship with those in government. What I'm saying is simple. You come to me, you want me to assign something that you are going to get 500 million. It is not that you should bribe me with 5 million so that you go with the work. It is better you make me a partner so that at the end of the day, we know the sharing formula. What national issues require APBN intervention? I have listed so many that almost all the issues, but how do we empower APBN to be able to address some of these issues? How do we empower APBN to be able to be on the top of the game? You know, some of these things happen almost every day, that it will need almost a spontaneous response. Do APBN have that kind of structure that they will be able to be talking about national issues, putting position? Do they have a kind of a research unit that will be talking about these things with authority? Are they going to use the professional bodies that are directly involved in those national issues? Do they have that easy access to those professional bodies that can easily generate the data that will make them make the point? So these sectoral groupings, do you have any meetings apart from the one we are doing here that you will now be looking at national issues that concerns you and then just bring to president to sign so that he just sign it out for the organization? How do we make APBN respond to these national issues almost immediately? I think this requires closer examination. It is not easy to just say that a currency redesign is a national issue that APBN should talk about. Population census, national issue, APBN should talk about. Election outcome, APBN should talk about. How do they generate a reasonable position that will not make them look like they are pedestrian, that they are really representing the professional bodies, and that it is something that it is a reflection and it is done in good time, because time is of essence on some of the issues. Like now, the workers say they are going to go on strike because there is no naira, and they are going to picket central bank. And I don't know if that is not going to make the naira more scarce. It will not go. Yes, sir. No, they have even sent it this morning already. They have done it, the old one, they have sent it already. No, they've never said it all. No, it is people that are speculating. It is people, not the central bank. No. Sir, let us look at it this way. Is it that the money is not there? Or is it that they are insisting that you cannot take more than 20,000 naira? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, Oga, you are not talking like central bank people. See, what central bank is saying, ba, is that they want to ensure that you go cashless. So that is the fundamental. Then, because they want you to go cashless, the volume of money in circulation should not be more than 10% of the available currency. So the cash in circulation, if you want, you can transfer all your money. But if it is cash, you cannot take more than 100,000 per week. Yeah. 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 Including my own. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Yes. Do I bring this one? As reduced. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Truly. So, so thank you very much. You see, yes, let's hear you first before we make further comments. Yes.
one of the people who said they're coming to the PDN. What we are discussing of that issue about the economy. 10 of them there. And the last topic we said, I think it should be factored into the NNCP. Usually, okay, Tuesday, that was 2 days ago. And the community will soon be out. I want to advise, we have interest with this matter. Let's wait for that community because that's really where the CPA expressing their external view. Most of the things we don't see them in the sector. But we get through those communities, like the CPA government today, because of because of this people with great interest to this one. Another person, every comment is great in that community. And we get access to it. And we will be able to do this. Because that was the first time we see an actor to express our views about this complex situation. How managed by CDN, whether it's properly managed or not. So if we want more information on that,
okay, let me say it this way. You see, we all agree that there is a problem with the implementation of the policy. But it is coming from maybe 3 dimensions. The first is that they are trying to solve so many problems at once. You see, the issue of kidnapping, if whether there is cash or no cash, if they catch you, you will find cash. There is whether new notes or old notes or anything. If they say, if they catch you, you must bring it. And what stops them even from asking you to bring dollars? So that one is not a solution to the problem. The issue of cashless policy. You see, the problem we have, let me tell you sincerely, we are going to further impoverish our people. There are up to not less than 20% of the people that are really dependent on what gifts you can do. For the past 1 or 2 months, there are places that I go personally that I used to give at least 20,000 dash, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 2,000, 1,000, 3,000, 1,000. For the past 2 months or so, I have not been able to give anybody any money. And I have the money. If I go to my village, there is no way I will not dash at least 300,000 naira. Dash one, this one 3,000, this one 2,000, this one. I have gone there 3 times now. 1 kobo I did not give anybody. Because I don't have the cash. And these people that I used to give them 1,000, 2,000, they don't have bank account. Not for purposes, just for purposes of clarity. I have relations that in fasting like this, when fasting is starting, somebody will get 20,000, somebody will get 50,000, somebody will get 100,000. This morning, I have to send in 1.3 million to my brother that he should go to and collect, and he's going to pay about 35,000 naira to get cash to be able to. So it is that there is problem. If I were to advise central bank on this matter of cashless or not cashless or mobile money, the issue should have been, how much money do you want to be in circulation? Thank you very much. 20% of cash, of the amount of money should be in cash. Okay, nobody should withdraw more than 20% of his money at any point in time. If you have 100 million, if you say you want to take 20 million, what is wrong with that? If you have only 100 naira, you can only take 20 naira. So at the end of the day, it is only 20% money that can be in circulation. But this one, you say, whatever, how much money you have, you cannot take 20,000. And for the past 1 week, 20,000 like this, just 20,000, you cannot get. No, what I'm saying, you cannot. I have signed in a paper now in a bank that anything they have money, they should please give me. For like 10 days now, I'm only able to get 20,000 naira. So only 20,000 naira. So you can imagine that kind of suffering that we're putting our people for a policy that at the end of the day, unfortunately, let me tell you sincerely, during election, at the bureau, they are selling naira new notes. New notes. You give them $10,000, they give you 4.3 million. Thank you very much. New notes. I have collected it myself. So it is that, where did they get the money from? It is our people that are suffering for nothing. But those that have the money, like somebody that he is able to get $10,000 from the bank, maybe he got it at almost 430. And if they say they're going to give him a 4.3, he has lost nothing. He's getting the dollar amount from the bank at official rate. But for those of us that are buying the dollar at 730, if I do that, I'm going to lose about 3 million. So that is the issue. So discriminatory professional, let us look at these issues as they are and come up with the ones that we can be of help to our people. It is not about me and you, that if it is just you, you can afford not to do any purchase of by cash. Almost anything you want, you can find a way of getting it by way of transfer. But there are people that, like I said, I know that not less than 20% of the people, they depend on what people will give them. So, and if you don't have the money to give them, it means they will not have. And it will compound the security problem. Because like somebody was saying that it is, yesterday somebody was saying it is the volume that you push somebody to the wall that will make him to react. These people are going to react. And it will take different shapes and sizes. So I think we are almost, okay. Mr. President, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is the crux of all these things. These people in central bank that are doing all those things, are they not our colleagues? Are they not? And this is the point that we are doing this retreat. I told you, if professionals decide to change this country, they can change. Because just like Prof said, I've listened to Central Bank many times. A few days ago, they did their monetary committee something, and I listened to the man. Those people have excellent statistics to give. They know it. Now, as professionals, you should use your knowledge to appropriately utilize the information you derive from this data. and proper, appropriate remedial actions. But this is where, as professionals, we have failed this country. You have the facts, you know what is right, you know what to do, but for some selfish interests. Now, our problems are not always ignorance. Sometimes we know very well what we are doing, but our own selfish interests overrides our sense of judgment. Now, all these things happen, and that's why I talked about politicians, bureaucracy, and things like that. And remember, I made a statement when we are swearing, or well, it's not swearing, when we are making this statement of allegiance, did we do it to anybody? We didn't do it to the president of this country. We didn't do it to minister. We didn't do it to anybody. We did it to the country. And therefore, as professionals, our duty is to the country. When we cannot stamp our feet and say no, for example, if Buhari says, I want, what is it? They didn't redesign the Naira, did they? They only repainted it. They didn't do any redesign. It's just painting they did. Okay? Now, there's nothing wrong in repenting so that you can now differentiate and use it as an opportunity of withdrawing what is in the circulation. But even the law, Prof started quoting the law, and I went and looked at it. And even the law says, advises a gradual process for this thing. If I were a professional, the central bank governor, he is a professional, I will tell the president, no, we can't do it this way. All of us seated here, if we don't have ability to say no, when no is the right answer to give, we are just wasting our time. We will all go out here and will become part of the problem, because a lot of us seated here, we are part of the problem. We are only pretending to do a lot of analysis, intellectual. But if we go and sit on our seats, we are part of the problem. And unless we get out of that being part of the problem, we can't change anything. And this is why we are looking at these things, so that we can plan and we can spread. What we are trying to do here, let me tell us, we were at the head of service office. At some point, even Prof had to argue simple English that they wrote. They were trying to give it a different meaning. But they were confronted with facts, and they got to understand where they are erred. And this is one of the things that we are trying to do in APBN. Wherever government offices, I have a belief that if we have an excellent communique, one of the places that APBN should visit is to pay a courtesy call to the central bank governor. There's nowhere we cannot go for courtesy calls now. But we want to go with certain orientation, and we want professionals to begin to change their orientation. Government is coming newly. I thought we could go to the head of secretary to the government first, but I said, no, this one is going. Let's go to head of service, because head of service, whatever we discuss there is staying. Let these people go. When Jagaban comes with his own people, we will go there. So please, let us not waste our time talking about some of these policies and whatever. The important thing is that how do we make professionals to stand their ground and say no to influences of either politicians or bureaucrats. And suppose one of the big challenges they face, which is some of the things I wanted to see people talking about, is if you want to insist on doing what is right, you may lose your job, isn't it? You have children to take care of, school fees, you have to eat. You are now losing your job. So you compromise, isn't it? Is there any way APBN can have a mechanism of making anybody very profitable challenge? We can go and protect that person. These are issues that we should think of very seriously. The issue of central bank, they all know what everybody is suffering. They all know it. And maybe some people are very concerned because they even have the money. Those who don't have the money are not bothered all those grammar. But what the chairman just said is that it is very true. There are some people, it's only when you go, you have some money in your pocket, you dash them, and that is their livelihood. And they are so grateful. Now those people are disadvantaged. All of us can do transfer. Let me tell you, this cashless policy, even the infrastructure we don't have. We don't even have the infrastructure. And the central bank governor was talking about it. Because I have used Bolt in Abuja. Sometimes I don't like driving, I just call Bolt. There was a time for 2 days, I could not transfer money to the Bolt because all the apps, and I have 4 apps, banks, 4 of them here. None of them worked. You try to transfer money, it will not work. There was a time I couldn't buy fuel in my car in Abuja, in Gwagwalada. You know why? The petrol station say you must come with cash. They are not ready to, they are not interested in POS. They had problem with POS. Transfer, they said no. Sometimes you do the transfer, the money doesn't even go. So they said, just come with cash. I had to park my car because I don't have the cash. It's close to 1 month now. That's why when chairman now brought that money, I wish he can give me some. Because I have not touched money like this for close to a month. So there are so many problems that, but this is because professionals succumb to political pressure, bureaucratic pressure, and they begin to do what they know is not yet time to do. I pray that we should have solutions. Self-governance means nobody can ask you to come and do your professional duty except within you. Nobody. That's what self-governance is in professions. If we cannot do that in this country, then we are wasting our time. And I pray that strong people exist in APBN with a strong mind, that we can be able to see how we can do some of these things. I pray if you are like me after this meeting, you just follow me, we'll follow the chairman.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for these wonderful discussions. What is going to happen now is that we'll give you some 5 minutes to do some stretching. Then thereafter, take lunch. Then we'll wait. We'll do some other things. By 4 o'clock, we'll come back and take the communique. Sorry, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, what national issues require APBN? Yes, well, number 7, enumerate APBN needs to do differently to enhance its image. Well, that's what we're saying now, that we should assert our authority and be independent professionals. Okay, so please give him a.
But if we go and unless we get out of that, why I'm looking at it so that we can plan and we can spread. What we are trying to do here. I have a belief that we have excellent community. But we want to do something with this. I thought we should go to the
Thank you very much. That to make what we are doing more effective, it is resolved that all states that do not have state chapters must have one now. And that those that have existing state chapters must make it more effective. And that all the issue of the committee that was working for reconciliation and collaboration at the national level, that all state chapters should also have such committees. Yes, sir. No, not at all. There is no interference.
And the central bank governor was talking about because I have used both in Africa. I don't like driving, I just want to. Now the time for 2 days I could not transfer money to the boat because all the apps, and I have 4 apps, 4 of them here. None of them work. You try to transfer money, it does not work. The time I couldn't find fuel in my car. Abuja is Babalaka, you know why? The first thing is the start with time. They are not ready. They are not interested in fuel. They have problems with fuel. Transfer the state from the time transfer the state to go. So they say, it's not the time to do that. What I start, I don't have to start. It's supposed to work from now. That's why when the chairman now wrote that money, I wish he can give this up. Because I have not touched the money like this for close to a month. But because the person has performed political pressure, bureaucratic pressure, and they begin to do what they not just time to do. I pray that it will have self-governance means no voting can actually come and be a nobody. That's what self-governance is. If we cannot do that in this country, I pray that some people I pray if you are like me after this meeting, you just follow me, you follow the chair.
I disagree with that. What is going to happen now is that also comprising there are that take long, wait, by 4 o'clock, we'll come back and take the sorry, yes, sir. Okay, what national issues require number 7, the number 8 is different to this. Well, that's what we're saying. Yes, thank you very much. That is part of the things that it was going to be part of our agreements, that the sectoral groupings will also be more active, that there should be some level of interactions among them and be taking positions that on national issues. I think it should be part of those things that we are going to consider later. Like I've said, it is time well spent. In 10 o'clock, we have been seated. Let's take some walk around and take food and reassemble by 4 o'clock to consider the communique. Thank you very much for the level of discussions and interaction. We appreciate. you very much. That to think what we are expecting is the job that all states that don't have state chapters must have one now. And that those that have the same state chapters must make it more effective. And that all the issue of the committee that was looking for consultation, collaboration at the same level, that all state chapters also have such committee. No, not at all. That's not at all.